So I'm going to wing it a little bit here, and I'm going to answer questions at the end, but I thought I'd tell you a little bit about my journey as a voiceover actor. You may find it familiar. You may find it completely different from yourself because I started this journey a long time ago, and some of you are very early journey. Can you hear me all right? So my mic technique okay? Little poppy, little breathy? Yeah. Okay, I just want to get a show of hands real quick. Are there any developers in the room? A few. Okay. I kind of expected that. I didn't expect it to be a developer event, really. How many of you have been doing voiceover acting for games for less than a year? Yeah, good number of you, okay. And how many of you consider yourself veterans? Dave, at least you have to. I mean, come on. Okay, so many of you don't consider yourself veterans. I'm curious about that. How many of you have been actively doing games professionally, with indie groups or AAAs or whatever, getting paid for it for 5 years? Wow, okay. How many of you are brand new to it? So there's a good mix in this room. Wow, interesting. I was curious what the mix in the room was going to be, so I wasn't exactly sure what to do for a talk for you guys, because I was aware that I'd be speaking to some people who really know this game, and they're here to network and have fun and maybe pick up some extra information. And some of you are at the very beginning of this journey and are just trying to figure out where to start. So I'll share a little bit of my journey with you, and then we'll open the floor up for questions. I never wanted to be a voice actor. It's the truth. I trained for the theater primarily with a little bit of television training. I trained in the States. You can hear it in my voice. I slip into a bit of a British enunciation now and then. You'll hear that as well. I've lived here in the UK since 1999. I did all my training in the States. It was all very Stanislavski-based, Meisner as well. So I did some of the classical American training systems and things like that. I did a BA and an MFA in acting, and then I moved here. I graduated from graduate school and moved to the UK in 1999 with my English wife, knowing nobody. Now I tell you this not to say, ooh, wee, me, or that, but to say, isn't that a stupid thing to do? So all my contacts, my entire network was in the US, and I picked up right at the point when I should be going to Chicago, New York, or LA, and I came to London. Now the point of telling you about this is because what I actually found is that when I arrived in London, I found myself in a bit of a niche market. Had any of you have dual citizenship or the ability to work in another country or the possibility of working in another country? I tell you this to say, it's not necessarily stupid. I arrived and I started working in television and film straight away. And within a few months, I met an agent. I talked myself into a role at the York Theatre Royal. Through that role, I met an agent who didn't quite know what to do with me as an American in the UK. But a few weeks after meeting her, she said, hey, Doug, would you like to go audition for a video game? I was like, what? Video game? I'd done some voiceover work, but I had no training in it. I loved video games, loved them. But voices weren't really a part of video games. They were only just starting to become a part of video games in 1999. And I went to this audition, and I met the fabulous Mark Estelle. And he kind of hummed and hawed and looked at me sideways and went, yeah, okay, we're that. But it was a trial by fire. I went to this audition, and I had no mic technique whatsoever. I didn't know what I was doing. I knew nothing about voicing for games. I just got on the mic, and I think Mark coached me through a few things. We recorded some stuff, and a few days later, I got the call, you got the job. And it just happened to be the lead role in a game called The Independence Ward, Age of Chaos. It was the character of Cal. Some of you older gamers might remember it, might not. But that was my introduction to the video games industry and to voice acting. So I dropped into it. It was never something I considered. What I did have going into it was a solid foundation of actor training to fall back on. So for those of you who are new or have been doing this for a few years who maybe haven't had much actor training, I can say from experience that all that actor training you have available to you through the voiceover network and other avenues you may be experiencing is all going to feed into this. It's acting for games. It's not voiceover. Voiceover is different. So as Dave has pointed out, you're playing a character. You're telling a story. In things like narration, you're still doing acting, but it's a different kind of acting in many ways. A lot of things are similar, but it's different. We're talking about games today. So having done that first game, I ended up working with outsourced media quite a lot. And games became a big part of my income. And it was a funny time as well, because nobody cared about actors in games. Now everybody wants to do it. But back then, when people asked me what my last job was, and I said, well, my last 3 jobs have been roles in games, they just kind of went, oh. And now they go, oh, what game? So I think it's an evolving industry. It's an industry that has gone from something that was emerging to something that is now something everybody wants to do. When I go do talks at universities or drama schools and things like that, at least half the room wants to get into video games. So you've got competition out there. So giving yourself as many tools as possible to get the roles, get more roles, and be part of this industry is only going to help. So actor training, whatever you can do in that regard. I want to share a couple of things about that journey with you. I will get to Geralt of Rivia. I'll get to it now, actually. So I went to this audition. It was just another audition, and Mark or his team had suggested me for this role, and I went to the audition, and I went in, and it was just another game. A game called The Witcher. I knew nothing about it. The books hadn't come out yet, so there was no resource to go to, really. So I met one of the guys from CD Projekt. He talked me through the audition. He kept coaching me, lower, 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 less emotion, less emotion, less emotion. Eventually he said, well, think about Clint Eastwood in the Dirty Harry films. And you could kind of hear his, go ahead, Donk, make my day. So that's kind of where the inspiration for the character came from. I ended up getting the role, and I was thrilled, and I went, and we did a lot of recording, and it was fantastic. And it was another job, and I walked away, because that's what we do. What I want to tell you now is about disappointment. And not a lot of people know about this, except all the people who I've told. See, I was a teacher of acting as well. I ran the BA Honors Acting course at the Arts University Bournemouth for 13 years, and all of the Witcher recordings for 1, 2, and 3 were done during that time. I was sitting at my desk one day, and I got a call from an actor friend who said, hey, Doug, I've just been to an audition for The Witcher 2 for Geralt of Rivia. And I was like, what? I thought I was Geralt of Rivia. And they said, yeah, well, they're auditioning. So, I want to check it out. So I was very disappointed, because I thought my initial reaction was, what have I done wrong? What didn't they like about my performance? Why am I not coming back? And I thought about this for a day or two, and then, you know what? I'm gonna chase this. And so I text messaged Boris, who originally auditioned me and worked with us a lot in recording of Witcher 1. I said, hey, I heard you're auditioning for Witcher 2. Are you interested? If you'd like me to come in and read again. And I heard nothing for a few hours, and then I got a text message that said, let me just talk to the director. And a few days later, I got a call saying, we want you back. But I didn't know what had happened. Yeah. So I went into the very first recording session for Witcher 2, not knowing why hadn't been brought back originally. And I was told by the director eventually that I was nervous as hell. I walked in and I was just like, well, I don't know what I can do different. What do they want me to do? And the director told me that basically CD Projekt Red had decided to just scrap everything and start completely new for Witcher 2. And this was a huge disappointment for a lot of people because they even chose a different production company. Yeah, some of you know about that. And it was hard. It was hard. Only 2 actors, I don't even know who the other actor is offhand, who were in Witcher 1 came back for Witcher 2. They didn't do anything wrong. Neither did I. It was just a choice that the developers had made to go in a completely different direction. So this can happen to you. But I want to say it's worth actually going and asking people if it is something that you had expected and it doesn't come about. I want to say go and ask. Can I just ask? Can I get some feedback on the performance, or why wasn't I brought back? That's completely a personal question for you. And I only want to share this story because I think it's one of those things that we as actors, we take personally. It's really easy to do. It's really easy to take it personally. It's really easy to internalize it and then turn it into negative energy that you take forward into your next audition. It's easy to do. Don't do that. Believe in yourself. In the end, the main director for Witcher 2 and 3, she went back to old recordings and sent the boys, "This is great. Let's just use him." So, 1, don't internalize that disappointment. Try not to. Try to turn it into constructive, positive, forward-thinking energy. And 2, persist. I could very easily have let that disappointment get me down, and I could go, "Oh, they didn't like me. I didn't do a good job." I could have done that. And then I would never have had the opportunity to go on the journey that I went on with Geralt of Rivia, which has been now, it's 2005 we recorded the first game. So, 23. Yeah, I'm 23. I'm terrible at math. 17 years, thank you. 17 years, okay? So that's kind of the big thing I really want to share with you, that we know, but we forget sometimes. And if you allow yourself to feed into that disappointment, you might just miss an opportunity that you won't even know you missed it, A few other things I wanted to share with you. I passed out in the booth last week. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, no, I've talked about it a little bit. It's the very first time that's ever happened to me. And it's a technical thing. But it is related to something else I want to talk with you about, which is about bringing yourself fully to the booth. And Dave's talked about this. Adele's talked about it a little bit. There's a concept in acting called, truth in acting. And the effort to find the truth at the moment is what an actor seeks. And again, Dave talked about, you're in this room on your own. You don't have a costume. You don't have a set. You don't have other actors to react off of. Sometimes you have that pre-recorded voice from another actor and they play it back for you to react to, but often you don't. Especially if you're playing a main character, because you're often recording first, or not necessarily first, but before a lot of the other actors are. So, how do you find this truth in an environment that is so incredibly false? And for me, this is my personal feeling. it comes from something called the reality of doing. It's a Meisner phrase. If you know Sanford Meisner, it's a fantastic system for learning how to interact with other actors and other character things like that. It's all about reacting to the other person. So again, they mentioned acting is reacting. Same idea. But you don't have those other actors, so what do? So the reality of doing is basically, very, very basically, the concept of really doing while you're performing what your character is doing. Now, obviously, that's not entirely possible. If you're on stage and you're playing an axe murderer, you can't actually kill your partner on stage, can you? Of course not. So I like to put it into this perspective. You need to be 90-10. 90% character, living character through the moments the character is living through, in that moment. Not in the moment that happened last take or last performance, this moment, now. On stage, most easily explained this way. On stage, no matter what the truth is, a glass falls and breaks on stage. First of all, I shouldn't have glass on stage anyways, but if you do, and a glass falls on stage and it breaks, you have to deal with that. If you ignore that, then the truthfulness for the audience is broken. Yeah. And then the only way to fix that is to acknowledge that the truthfulness has been broken. I have lots of stories about actors who've done this. Bill Irwin, I went to see a show at Seattle Rep long time ago. Bill Irwin, famous comedian, clown comedian, good actor. They were doing Waiting for Godot. And if you know Waiting for Godot, it's a famously circular script, right? Really hard for the actors. Well, it became apparent, to me at least, I think to other members of the audience as well, that they had caught themselves in a loop. And they couldn't find their way out of it. I couldn't remember what the next line that would take them forward in the script was. So we went through this loop about 5 or 6 times. And then eventually, Steve, a brilliant guy, he stopped. And somebody shouted the line. And he said, thank you, and he carried on. So, anyways, that's a really good example of truth at the moment, of truthfulness in acting, and how it can be broken. How this relates to voice acting, I think, because I've been thinking a lot about this, is that in the booth, what you have to be is as fully present as you can possibly be. If your mind is anywhere else, if your heart is anywhere else, except on that character, doing what they're doing in that moment, it will not sound true. It will not ring true. I use the example of, when you're talking with a friend on the phone, or even somebody you don't know, and you can hear the smile in their voice. Yeah, that's not just physicality of the lips. That is what you're hearing. You're hearing a truthfulness. You can also hear when that smile is fake, can't you? Yeah? So this is kind of what we're talking about, the reality of doing. I'm going to touch on this more in the workshop that I'm doing later this afternoon. But I'd like to just open up for a few quick questions. I don't have much time, but so just a few quick questions, and then I'll leave you to the panel, I think is next, isn't it?
Yes. I just want to ask you about when you asked them the question, why did you go and find someone else, or did you want to find someone? How do you deal with it when they tell you a truth which is negative?
Well, thankfully, I've never had to deal with that.
Just positive, right?
But I didn't know.
No.
So I went into the recording session knowing I'd been chosen again, but not knowing why.
Exactly.
I hadn't been.
But you had been chosen again, yeah.
Yeah, but I had. So
yeah.
I've had disappointment. I've gone for big auditions.
That's the thing I'm really interested in. You have got to, it's a challenge for an actor, because you don't get the part, you never find out, they never say no to you, you just don't get. So that is, don't you think, the most incredible thing in your life is to say, it doesn't matter that I didn't get that part.
Absolutely. If you remember what I said about going to the Witcher 1 audition, I auditioned. I walked away. And then I walked away from the game coming out as well, from finishing that recording and the game coming out. You just walk away because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know why it might happen. It's kind of a weird itinerant lifestyle.
But it's restoring something. You've got to do something to restore yourself.
Absolutely. And you can do that by reading a great book that you really enjoy, or you can do that by going for long walks with your dog, or you can do that by spending time with people who affirm you and affirm who you are and your talent, wherever possible as well. You can do that by doing your own work. A lot of actors sit around waiting for the phone to ring. I do it myself quite often, so I'm not calling the kettle black here. I am the kettle. But actors who take charge of their own careers, even if the work they're doing is just putting together a podcast with some friends and putting it out there for the world to see and see what happens. Yeah. So keep it positive. Believe in yourself. And we'll see you next. I've been told time's up. So we'll see you out there somewhere.